You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. The President of the United States is really fed up. He's fed up. His cabinet is fed up. A lot of American people are fed up because for a long time now, you have been told, you have been promised that all immigrants into the country, all migrants into the country, everyone who's been called a refugee or a migrant or just an immigrant, because God forbid you classify whether someone is an illegal or legal immigrant, these are the backbone of our country. Doesn't matter where they're from. Doesn't matter who they are. By nature of being an immigrant, they make our community stronger. Now, we don't actually talk about character, what they choose to do when they come here. That would be discussing something like assimilation. We don't talk about the resources that they take or they provide to their local communities or the country at large. That's discussing merit and character. No, instead, all of these politicians, they got together on the left and a lot of them on the right and said, you know who's really good? Immigrants. And everyone just... oh, that's so brave and stunning and just wow, incredible. And after watching crime after crime after crime, after large-scale betrayal of American values, after large-scale betrayal of Americans themselves, people got really tired of it. And so after a shooting by an Afghani migrant who was brought in by the Biden administration of two National Guardsmen from West Virginia in Washington, D.C., one of whom is recovering, the other of who was murdered after he shot her in the head, after the 70-plus Somali migrants in the latest scandal. And I say the latest scandal because this is one of dozens of major Somali-related crimes, or should I say Somali immigrant crimes, in Little Mogadishu. That's not my term for it. Little Mogadishu is what the Somali community in St. Paul, Minnesota is known as. That is a major issue. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, the Pakistani terror attack that was thwarted, the number of third world country crimes that have been committed here in the United States that should have never been here in the first place. And you were told that, well, we can't do anything about it because those are the same kinds of immigrants as that came through Ellis Island back in the day. The tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's why they don't make any effort to speak English or participate in a community or join a local church or get involved or actually follow United States labor laws or not defraud the entire community to send money back to Somalia. I say all of that to announce, or maybe I should say, for those of you who have heard the news already, to reiterate and go into depth, that the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, at the direction of the President and at the advice of Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Director of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, the USCIS has announced that effective immediately, immigration will be halted and all naturalization processes for individuals halted who originate from these 19 countries, including Afghanistan, Burma, or if you're a dirty commie, Myanmar, Burundi, Chad, Cuba, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Laos, Libya, Republic of the Congo, which isn't really much of a republic, but we'll talk about that later, Sierra Leone, Somalia, and I do mean the currently civil war-torn atrocity Somalia, not the decent Somalia from like 100 years ago that wasn't around for very long. You know, another story for, again, a couple of minutes from now. Sudan, Togo, or, if you don't have much time to go, Turkmenistan, Venezuela, and Yemen. These decisions by the Trump administration have upset a lot of people. And I mean, they've upset a lot of people, by which I mean every menopausal left-wing woman, every young in-college barista liberal lady, and then, of course, the immigrants and their simps. For example, Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, news anchors that look like Rachel Maddow, news anchors that are Rachel Maddow. But alas, what has people more upset than anything is not just that Trump is pausing immigration until we actually vet the people that are already here. Well, they're most upset because Donald Trump said some things, producer Nick. He said some things and some stuff, and they really, it's enraged some of these Karens until they're just that kind of rage. So the president of the United States said this in a cabinet meeting yesterday about Jacob Frey and how proud he is as the mayor of Minneapolis about the number of Somalians in his city. Interesting stuff, President.
The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief.
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also saying
I wouldn't be
that
proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country.
He's very correct. He's very correct. Why are you so proud that you happen to have a large number of one kind of people in your community? Isn't that kind of weird? Because again, Somalians aren't like a race. They're not an ethnic group. They haven't been considered an ethnic group itself since the people in
It's like one big family there.
We'll get to that. the
Somalian tree goes round and round.
The Somalian people, so to speak, since they actually moved to become the Somali people on the Somali coast, haven't actually been considered a genuine ethnic community itself as a wholesome group. And I mean wholesome as in encountering or encouraging the whole. Since like the 1700s. Again, that entire eastern region of Africa is rather diluted into many different ethnic groups. Somalia itself is comprised of like 40 to 50 different ethnic groups. And do you know how we can tell? Because the Somalians are mad at other Somalians in Minnesota for not helping get Omar Fateh elected to be the next mayor of Minneapolis, because
it's
Jacob
just like
Frey is
feud over there
in power again. It's such a circular firing squad of just abject nonsense. But I digress. The president also said some things about Ilhan Omar that got him in hot water right after he made this comment about Jacob Frey. Here you go.
And they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks. And we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much, everybody.
The tapping that you hear are some of the cabinet members essentially hearing the president of the United States. And this is something that the elites on the coast and in some of the suburbs in flyover country, as I say from Indiana, and the academic elites who are in the more establishment wing of the Republican Party that still remain in a lot of positions, and as well as the remaining academic elite over on the left in university campuses and, of course, on the coasts. You need to understand something. The majority of Americans, according to the polling data, agree with this man on this principle. Now, there was a lot of pearl clutching immediately. We broke out the pearls and all of the gnashing of teeth that came out. Oh, he called all Somalians garbage. They tried that too recently. You tried it with Puerto Rico. Oh, he had a comedian out that said Puerto Rico's a trash place and oh, it's terrible, it's awful, all this other nonsense. The idea that you are going to convince Americans that Donald Trump is saying, all black and brown people, I want them gone. They're awful. And unless they're picking cotton, I don't want... He's never said that. He's not going to say that. The president made it very clear. Immigrants from Somalia have quite the track record of producing nothing of value for the country. And we're going to get into a little investigation on that in just a moment. But first, we got to give Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, a chance to respond because this deeply offended him. Nothing offends a white man without any testosterone whatsoever, or, of course, a menopausal, liberal, middle-aged woman, quite like the president saying something that the majority of Americans agree with. And so Jacob Frey, he pulled out the Kleenex, and he just pours his heart out to little Mogadishu. Here's Jacob Frey.
He's wrong, and we want them here.
Right off the top of the bat, for those who are listening and not watching the show, I love the dramatic news angle. Like, as soon as he started talking, did you see they did the Michael Bay zoom in? Almost, here, look at this.
Wrong.
Impressive.
That's pulled the cameraman from The Office.
Yeah. That's actually Creed Pratton behind the camera. It's really incredible. All right, sorry, we'll let him continue.
Wrong, and we want them here. Somali people have been an extraordinary benefit. I'll say it again. Somali people have been a benefit to our city for longer than I have been in our city.
Okay, he is making a claim that the Somali people have made an objective difference, not just for the people of Minneapolis, not just for the people of St. Paul, not just for those of Minnesota, but for the United States at large. In fact, Somalian people have been, the backbone, Ilhan Omar called them. They're the backbone of the people.
It's their turn to be the backbone of America.
Very, very impressive stuff. We'll let him continue, but keep score here because it does kind of matter how he's describing these individuals because not really holding up to fact-check scrutiny. Well, we'll find out.
They have started businesses and created jobs. They have added to the cultural fabric of what Minneapolis is. They were welcoming to me when I first came out to Minneapolis. In fact, they were one of the first groups that I myself got to know.
So this is a man who has never been to the South. If you move into any town in the South that is under 20,000 people in population, you will be welcomed by everyone, including probably getting a pot roast and a dump cake from the postman. I'm sorry, the idea that the Somali people can do no wrong or have never, contributed, no crimes or fraud. I mean, they're great because they welcomed me. Because I came into the community and ignored all of their fraud. I ignored all of the problems. I ignored the consistent local Islamic groups making excuses for those who had been convicted of rape and child molestation. And so they welcomed me. Oh, wow. I mean, what an exchange. How amazing.
I mean, I moved into my apartment and a group of men came to my door and said, ignore all the fraud and corruption and we'll vote for you.
Well, kind of, until they finally got one of their own to run, Omar Fateh, and then they had a little Somali civil war, which, given the history of Somalia, that's probably the only culturally accurate thing that the Somalian community's done since moving to the country. Alas, we'll let him finish. He's still excited, and you can see the community liaison to Somalia behind him. He's very, very excited about this. He looks like he's watching a steak being fried on the stove. He's pretty pumped.
To, again, villainize an entire group is ridiculous under any circumstances. And the way that Donald Trump is consistently doing it, I think calls into question major constitutional violations.
That's not how constitutional violations work. And actually, separating a group of people based on the concerns security-wise on a cultural origin point is constitutional. It is one of the very first things that the United States did as a country. We set up immigration parameters. And guess what those immigration parameters were based on? They weren't based on religion. They were not based on race. They were not based on the localization understanding of ethnicity at the time. Now, it was based on nations specifically. And it has always been so.
As we mentioned earlier, this came up with the Puerto Ricans, which worked because they were mostly Puerto Rico is a monoethnic community. There still is issues there. But with Somalia, it's monoracial, sort of. And so they can get away with this argument that it's a race-based issue. When Somalia is its nationality, not
That's
race.
a really, really good point. Again, the idea they bring forward, they're like, oh, well, I mean, Trump says he doesn't like the migration from Somalia. It must be because, oh, well, all Somalians are black, so therefore, no, not going to work. By the way, I do like what Sick of the BS, one of the channel members, said. It looks like Frey is very confused by his own lying. Yeah, I'd agree. There's only so many mental gymnastics you can do before you end up pulling something.
And it certainly violates the moral fabric of what we stand by in this country as Americans.
The mayor of Minneapolis, Minnesota, wants you to know that the Trump administration has violated the fabric after 72 Somali Americans were arrested for $1 billion of fraud, to then send that money back to Somalia. He's like, how could Trump just say Somalian? Incredible stuff. I really, really do enjoy it. But again, if there is someone in a MAGA hat, someone in a red hat that commits a crime, let's say he's not even committing a crime. Let's say he's just caught in a bad camera angle. Let's say he's standing on the steps of the Supreme Court and this Native American walks up to him and starts chanting and yelling like an idiot in his
very
face.
Specific, almost like it could have happened.
Just a little hypothetical here. And let's say this kid, let's say he's a kid in the MAGA hat. He stands there, and according to the camera angle, it looks like he smirks at the Native American. Well, then what you got to do is say all people who wear Trump hats are racist against Native Americans. We need to crucify this kid, and then you are losing a major defamation lawsuit because the kid didn't even smirk, and even if he did, who cares? And even if he had done something, I thought you were against painting groups with this wide brush. Again, it's all a cherry-picking game for the left, but I'm interested in picking some deep cultural and historical cherries here, because here on the Tony Kinnett cast, we care. We care deeply. Jacob Frey made the claim that there were all of these wonderful, incredible contributions that the people of Somalia have made here in the United States. So we're going to do a little cultural service here and list some of the great achievements that Somali American immigrants have contributed to society since they have immigrated here. I happen to have American History, the AP edition, so you know it's good. We're going to go through some of the most famous Somalian heroes in our nation. Somalians who have exceeded expectations in mercantilism and colonial commerce in the United States. Somalians famous for their contributions to literature. And let's not forget, and also the most famous Somali American poet. Somali American accomplishments in physics, chemistry, engineering. And also looking through some of these incredible examples that I've listed of Somali American accomplishments. Sorry, Producer Nick.
I also went through the effort of compiling a list.
A list of Somali American accomplishments? Producer Nick, you shouldn't have. Oh my gosh.
It took me a while, but there's a lot there.
Producer Nick, this list of Somali Americans that have contributed to American society is freaking empty. There's nothing here. Oh, wait a minute. Are you telling me there aren't any major Somalian contributions? Now, we actually did, aside from, I
did actually do some research.
Aside from that, we did actually do some of the research here. There have been, and I'm serious, this is the complete compendium of notable Somali immigrants in the United States who have contributed to the growth, the prosperity of the United States. There have been, are you ready for this? 4 politicians, one of whom married her brother, 3 musicians, none of whom have topped the Billboard charts or been awarded anything specifically at a national level, 2 athletes, well, 1 athlete in a minor B-League sport, and 1 trainer on a team. Impressive stuff. 2 activists. In fact, the most prominent Somali member of American society, like the one person that we've looked like all afternoon to try to find one Somali American who had done something notable. The most notable we could find is Hodan Nalaya. Now, what is Hodan Nalaya famous for? He was a journalist, sort of. That's right, the most notable Somali American in history. Hodan Nalaya was a journalist. Well, what was his journalism? What did he do? Did he expose the Chicago meat markets like Upton Sinclair? Maybe he was a brilliant broadcaster like Walter Cronkite. Maybe he did extremely brilliant investigative reporting like Andy Ngo. Did he win Pulitzers, Dow Prizes? What are his accomplishments? I'm not joking. He is the founder of Integration TV.
Sorry, he was.
He was the founder of, well, he'll always be the founder, right? I mean,
yeah.
Right. Founder of Integration TV, which is celebrated for positive stories about Somalia. Now, someone call Alanis Morissette because there is a bit of irony here, and it's a bit gross. So this individual, who is a Canadian-American Somalian, okay, he left the United States to travel back to Somalia, and in 2019, he was killed in an Islamic terrorist attack in Somalia. Who is the terrorist organization responsible for killing the most notable Somali American in history? Al-Shabaab, the terror organization that was receiving the over $1 billion in fraud committed by the 72 Somalians who were arrested in the major federal operation in Minneapolis just this last year. That's incredible. How? I mean, the most notable. I mean, there were so many great names, all one of them just beautiful stuff. So again, if anyone tries to tell you that Somali Americans haven't contributed a lot, let's say you're a reporter on the left and you look like Rachel Maddow, which is to say, like every reporter or anchor on the left, you can cry some big crocodile tears over the horrible treatment of Somali Americans. Here, I don't just want to give you my perspective. Let's hear an expert's journalistic perspective here.
The vast majority of Somali folks here are American citizens. They're people who fled war in their country as refugees to start a new life.
Which is why they're sending so much money back home. Again, the Somali American community sends more money home than any immigrant community in the United States. Per capita, more remittance funds are sent back to their home country than anyone.
And for such good causes, like we mentioned.
3 times as much per capita. 3 times as much per capita than someone connected to Israel, South Africa, or China. Just that if we're going to talk like controversial foreign funding circumstances, for example here. Somalians send oodles of money back to Somalia.
Or in their country as refugees to start a new life. Once upon a time, that was a story America liked to tell about itself. Hell, it's emblazoned on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. To breathe free. Minnesotans by the thousands cannot tonight. Perhaps sitting in fear, even with legal status. And that their president called them garbage.
The president did not actually call all Somalians garbage. The specific phrasing that he used, was to call Ilhan Omar and her friends garbage. That was the language that he used. Now, knock off Rachel Maddow over at Care 11. She's really, really upset about this. Now, I would be upset if I wore a black and white houndstooth vest and had Bradley Cooper hair also. That would be quite the combination. But alas, she is deeply touched and concerned. Again, we actually did the research on prominent Somalians. If you're going to list a community that's deeply important to you, then you might, again, I've done this on the show. One of the very first things that we discussed on the show, back when we were just a single station, this was a side project of mine out of WIBC in Indianapolis only. Back when it was just that show, one of the first episodes that we did talked about some of the most valuable contributions of those in the United States who came from generations of slavery and went on to create incredible inventions for the country. And we have had on guests consistently that have praised different communities in the United States who have produced things because their culture had something valuable to add, or they assimilated to the country, they assimilated to the country and they provided incredible services and improvements to the nation.
Yeah, the left is really going to learn a hard lesson here of the days of having pride in diversity for diversity's sake is over. Jacob Frey needs to realize that having pride for having the largest Somali community, because they're a Somali community, that dog doesn't hunt. It doesn't work.
No, absolutely not. Now we're going to come back and talk about some of the ICE raids, and then of course Pramila Jayapal and Ilhan Omar, the pearl clutching, because again, 124 Democrats are now co-sponsoring this bill together in an effort, 123 plus Pramila Jayapal, in order to produce this amazing restoration of freedom by forbidding anyone from being arrested or deported or having immigration law upheld at all, which is not constitutional. We'll cover that in a minute. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot to cover tonight. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Feels like I'm losing.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Oh yeah, that was a really quick commercial break. That's the kind of stuff that we do for you here. You didn't even see a commercial on that break because it's time to talk about what's actually going on the ground. Now you can hear an angry Rachel Maddow lookalike tell you how things are all the time, but you might be a little suspicious of that. So we have some actual on the ground footage here of ICE making the rounds. And yeah, they are in fact arresting those who are here illegally, those who are suspected of committing various crimes, those who have been convicted of crimes but allowed to evade federal immigration law and judicial removal orders in Minneapolis. I mean, the Minneapolis population is losing it. Video after video of ICE agents out and about doing the work. People are very upset about it. I do love this one caption on this last video here. So it said, ICE spotted near Robbinsdale, Minnesota. 2 Somali women were pulled. I love how from a distance they can tell they're Somali. Why do you think that? They're wearing a burqa. They must be Somali. I'd love to hear the reasoning on that. But my favorite is the sentence after it said, ICE is driving mom cars. Beware. Mom car. Do they mean minivans or just like slightly off-brand SUVs?
Honda Odysseys?
Honda Odyssey? Dude, Honda Odysseys are nice. Minivans get a bad rap, dude. Those are some fresh vehicles.
One of the highest safety ratings, and gray is the least likely to be stolen, so...
Dude, I'm here for it. You know what, ICE, if you're using minivans, that's a level of comfort I wasn't expecting. Maybe they mean homeschool moms, and they're like the Mercedes like travel van thing. Those are pretty comfy. A little less comfy than the Honda Odyssey. Just, I once had the opportunity when I was in high school to ride a little bit with some friends, and one of them, homeschool family, had the Mercedes Sprinter. Not as comfortable as you'd think. Probably not even called the Mercedes Sprinter. I'm probably mixing 2 of those different vans. The comments are correcting me. I don't care. They're vans. So aside from the exciting van conversation, Jacob Frey and the police chief, leather jacket Von Tough Dude, they came out to issue a statement in Somali. Because when you're trying to communicate that you have a really pro-American community, getting the crew out to talk like Jawas from Star Wars, that's the move right there. Here's their joint statement.
isma aqaana ayaa ka caawinaa wixii aragti inaad samaysid waa fahanna soo maaha arrinta kale ku soo xigta waxay tahay haddii qof aad u malaynaysid inuu aad hubin inuu yahay dowladda inuu ka soco sida ice oo kale inuu yahay ama uu yahay askari oo aad hubin inuu askari runa yahay qof kasta iska soo xiran kara dharka waxaan ku leenahay waxa inaad soo wacdo Minneapolis Police 911 911 waa inaad soo wacdo si aad u hubsato inuu qofkan horta police maba yahaba in qof kasta ma taqaan marka iska soo xiran kara oo dadkeena markaan handidi kara maadaama ay dhacday magaaladani in lagu dilay laba qof
or you know as they say in Star Wars Yeah, truer words have never been spoken. Exciting stuff. Now the real catch here is Ilhan Omar. She's the angriest, and so she goes on MS Now to tell everyone she's ready to fight. She's got her dukes up. Her brother's on the line. We're ready for a tussle.
He's always been a racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic. We know that he...
For the record, she said xenophobic. She did not say xenophobic. I think President Trump probably enjoys a good Cinnabon every now and again. I mean, who doesn't? Probably true monsters. So she said xenophobic. So she called him the isms, the ists, the phobes. Exciting. But we'll let her royal Ilhanness describe the president.
A racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic. We know that he called African nations a shithole in his first administration. We know that when he came down that escalator, he said he was going to stop Muslim immigration into this country. And so it is not surprising that he is going after black immigrants in.
Do you see how quickly she framed that in? So she says, you have Trump, what he's doing now. He said when he came down the escalator once, he said, we're going to stop Muslim immigration, which again, what he was talking about was a temporary pause, again, because of Islamic terror incidents, for example, boys and girls, like the New Orleans Muslim terror attack in which a vehicle was driven through the crowd of people on New Year's. Or, of course, the Islamic terror attack in which an individual in Colorado torched women and children with Molotov cocktails. Those kinds of terror attacks. Again, understandable. Then she says that, see how she compares it immediately. She says, which is the same as he wants black immigration cut down. No. I don't know if you've noticed this, producer Nick. I've done the looking here on the stopping. Kenya and Botswana, not on the list. No Kenya and Botswana. Not seeing it. In fact, there are a lot of African nations. In fact, also some Caribbean nations like the Dominican Republic, which have a lot of people in those nations who are black, who immigrate to the United States. They're not on this list. Do you know why? Because it is a national issue. But she's not honest enough to say that. Of course not.
In this country, and it's certainly not surprising that he's choosing a black immigrant community that is also Muslim. But what I would like to say is that most of us are citizens. On our passport, it says we are nationals of this country. We love that Minnesota has welcomed us. Many of us have not been settled in Minnesota. We chose it as a home because the Minnesota people and the state is beautiful and very welcoming, and we are going to...
She has complained about Minnesota and how its weather affects her. She's called the weather of Minnesota racist before. Ilhan Omar has complained about the racism of Minnesota weather. And by the way, she says we chose Minnesota. Isn't Minnesota supposed to be like stolen land from the Sioux or something? Where's that right here? Well, because the Somalians came later, they're not on stolen land anymore? Oh, so much for that particular narrative. But again, she's making the case that, again, well, these are just American citizens. Yeah, sure, I pledged my allegiance on video to Somalia first, which is a problem. You don't see me going around saying, I pledge my allegiance to the Cherokee tribal nation before the United States. That would be wrong. In the right context, that would be seditious. But alas.
Be here regardless of what the president has to say.
Now, a lot of Americans have called for her to be denaturalized. In fact, an investigation perhaps to be opened into her interesting marital circumstances, maybe a DNA test of sorts. And again, if she violated immigration law by maybe marrying a member of the family to come into the country, that would violate a lot of things you're supposed to not do if you're immigrating into the United States. Also, it's kind of gross to marry your brother. She has been asked now if, she's going anywhere. And of course, she just responds that she's not going anywhere. I love little congressional walking interviews like this because you get some real choice comments.
Congresswoman, do you agree with President Trump's assumption that you married your brother to get citizenship? Have you begun packing your bags for Somalia yet, Congresswoman Elmore?
Not going anywhere.
So you're not?
No, don't waste your energy on me.
Do you have a message for President Trump?
I will be here probably longer than Trump.
Wait, do you have a message for President Trump?
I am like a quarter of his age.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say to him?
Some old man losing his mind. I don't know why he's obsessed with me.
Okay. I'll be here longer than he is. I'm young, she said. Producer Nick, I don't know if you can help me. Did President Trump marry his brother to gain access to the United States?
No. He has been married quite a few times, but never his brother.
Yeah. I'm just checking here. Just checking for kicks and giggles. And then after all of this, Pramila Jayapal, with Ilhan Omar being a co-signer, one of the co-sponsors of the bill. By the way, co-sponsoring a bill is you're supposed to be the other author of this. So there's this large Democrat group that's come forward now, 124 in total, with Pramila Jayapal from Washington, I believe, and has stepped into the ring to announce that they are producing a bill that is going to just completely outlaw immigration customs enforcement or any federal authority from upholding federal law on immigration or deporting anyone. And also, giving every single illegal immigrant who made it into the country their own taxpayer-funded lawyer you have to pay for in order to keep them in the country even longer. Here you go.
Today, to say enough. Our Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act has a remarkable, unprecedented 123 original co-sponsors. Before we've even introduced it, 123 co-sponsors, and it overhauls the detention system.
What's so unprecedented, these Democrats are really mad. Oh, it needs to stop. Our Protection for Immigrants Who Did Nothing Wrong Act. It says it in the name. Come on.
It drastically scales back the use of detention. It ensures that every single immigrant who is in detention has their human and civil rights protected. Our bill also phases out the use of private for-profit detention centers. It prohibits the detention of children and families and makes it harder to...
Did you notice that right there? It prohibits the detention of families, which means if you have children, you can't be detained. If you have a husband or a wife, you can't be detained. If you have cousins, you can't be detained because that would be detaining a family member, and that's deeply, deeply wrong. Yeah, that's just straight up corrupt and disgusting.
Detain primary caregivers and vulnerable people like pregnant women or seniors or workers who are whistleblowing on unscrupulous employers.
Now you go. So if you're working, yeah, sure. Let's say you're violating the Department of Labor. You are, let's say, working on a weed farm in California, and you're doing illegal work, or you're working in a canning facility, perhaps in the middle of the country. Let's say Omaha, Nebraska, for example. Pick a hypothetical. If you are one of the people there, you just claim to be a whistleblower, and they can't detain you, and you can totally not run off.
It requires DHS to allow members of Congress to do our jobs and conduct those unannounced inspections that hold these facilities accountable. As an immigrant myself.
Yeah, great. We don't care. So I do like that requires them to allow Congress. Again, Congress is already allowed to participate in oversight of federal facilities, but they have to give 24 hours notice. Why? First of all, the Oversight Committee has been given rules-based power in Congress. You have to ask the Oversight Committee chairman on the rules for when people can show up to certain things. You can't just be LaMonica McIver and show up like the Kool-Aid man, oh yeah, and body slam federal agents because you want to. No, not allowed. What you have to do is say, hey, I want to come out and observe this facility. They then make sure the facility is secure. Federal agents are not allowed to put congressmen and women and members of the administration or any civilian in the United States in a safety risk by allowing them access to an unsecured area. By the way, that's not just me. That's literally a freaking OSHA code. You're not allowed to let people into unsafe operational spaces. It's not difficult, boys, girls, and squirrels. But alas, I mean, we have to get out there. We have to pearl clutch. We have to get out there and virtue signal, all exhausting, all tiring. Producer Nick, do you have anything to add on this nonsense before we pivot over to the newest on the war crime saga and scandal?
Yeah, while I was preparing for the show today, I did some research into the Minneapolis fraud issues. I became interested in some of the NGOs that have been helping move some of these illegals into the communities. And so I made my way to the DHS websites and was looking through them, trying to find information about the NGOs' grants that help fund them.
Sure.
I heard some rumors online that per illegal detainee, more than $2,400 was granted to each member. I don't know if we have the B-roll up yet, but when we are able to, one of them will feature a page showing the Department of Administration Grants Management and featuring a social services subsection where there is 3 categories: Department of Children, Youth, and Families, Department of Human Services, and Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolutions. Under the Department of Human Services, it required me to sign up for an email list, which I decided not to. So I went to look for the DHS website itself for their partners, providers, grants, and funding.
Sure, you're supposed to, as a state website, list the state grantees, and what you found was a 404 page. Explain what a 404 page is for perhaps the less techie among us, real quick, Producer Nick.
So 404 indicates a direct failure of whoever's running the website to properly host the page, which means that, sometimes it's innocent. Sometimes there's issues with page hosting that it needs updated and can't be at that moment. But also that appears when a host takes that page down without properly removing the links from outside sources.
So Minnesota's Department of Human Services, in the middle of a major series of fraud investigations, and of course, Governor Tim Walz announcing a new, definitely not fraudulent, riddled, come take money program. The grantee list has just all of the sudden 404'd. It's nowhere to be found. It's just vanished from existence. Not suspicious at all. Not suspicious whatsoever. We're going to send everyone over to the break real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk some war crime nonsense and the actual Rachel Maddow. And of course, lest I forget, Senator Mark Warner of Virginia suggesting a military coup. It's going to be a real hoot. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. It's good to be with you because remember at the beginning of the week, the end of last week, I was told Hegseth had committed these war crimes. There was this Washington Post story. It was incredible. And that Hegseth had been sitting there watching a live video feed in September of these strikes on fishermen. Just these people out for a nice Sunday fishing exercise, just out there casting the reel, doing a little trolling at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And then Pete Hegseth is like, kill them all, and kill them some more. And then threw 800 missiles and mustard gas. And also, I'm pretty sure the ghost of Saddam Hussein onto these poor fishermen. War crimes. And then a couple of things happened. Number one, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona said, now's the time I can run for president of the United States. And he got out in front of everyone and said, hey, I was a Navy captain, and I say war crimes, and I wouldn't have followed these orders because they're illegal. And then they're like, are you on the record saying that? You're still like on reserve status. Are you sure you want to say? It's like, well, actually, I'm not saying it'd be an illegal order, but I'm Mark Kelly. And that's kind of the whole spiel for him. And then the New York Times came out and said, yeah, the Washington Post article is what the kids call wrong. Not true. In fact, Hegseth gave the orders. There was an admiral that made sure things were going correctly, a special operations admiral. And absolutely not what happened. That didn't stop, of course, the main demographic for the left. Of course, I'm talking about middle-aged women on the left. Again, not the nice, sort of loving, sweet, kind women who, as they age, like a fine wine, over on the right side of the aisle with their family, their faith, their community, enjoyable people. I'm talking about, well, you know, the kind of ladies that are represented on, like, The View.
I just want to make it very clear that if this second strike, I feel like I'm in A Few Good Men. Who ordered the code red? Did you order the code red? I think that Pete Hegseth clearly ordered the code red here. Yeah.
Again, the Washington Post was wrong. The New York Times pointed out that the two magical unnamed imaginary friend sources who they cited, Hegseth was nowhere near the direct orders watching from a TV this strike. No. You guys, that's not how the military works, right? You do realize that the Secretary of War is not sitting there in the room with a TV watching every operation around the world undertaken by active servicemen of the United States Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, the Coast Guard, and also all of our military contracting groups that we work with. Yeah, that's not how that works. She thinks it's like Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. We sit in a room with walls. Who's good? Are you Lieutenant Weinberg? Okay, yeah, great.
Pete
Thank you.
Hegseth sitting in the break room with an iPad, just shh, I'm watching a boat being blown up.
Yeah.
And I also think that that would be a war crime. And it's very clear. You speak to anybody from JAG, you speak to Senator, California Representative Ted Lieu, who's a former JAG officer.
Again, JAGs have come out to speak on this and have said no. In fact, we're going to go ahead and do this right here, right now. Just so that you're aware, the idea that firing two subsequent missiles, whether they be Hellfire, some kind of an AGM, whatever package of missile it is, you know, whenever there are packages that are fired, if it's a JTAC officer and he's calling in, he says, hey, that grid square, I don't want to see it anymore. If it's with a suspected terrorist, if it is with a declared war nation, no matter what, if there are clear rules of engagement set forward that say you are allowed to operate in this particular instance, then yeah, you're allowed to send multiple strikes on a particular target. There's no one-shot rule. That's not a thing. It's like, all right, you've only got one shot, so make it count. No. And how do I know this, by the way? I have observed a lot of soldiers and airmen in training at Lackland and other bases. I have observed them in training. No, never has a sergeant, never has an officer from Butterbar all the way up to the old man at 06 said, all right, now remember, men, as soon as you let that fly, that's your only missile. We only have 3 of them, and one of them is currently on the fritz. No, that's not a thing. Don't be stupid. Again, just for your personal enjoyment, here is a clip provided by former infantry officer Mark Lucas, pointing out that for example, when there's an AC-130, an aircraft providing overwatch to a combat command, yes, fighting terrorist designated organizations by the State Department that Congress hasn't explicitly stated are terrorist organizations, like, let's say, some of the different Houthi Yemen tribes, for example. Yeah, multiple rounds. 1.
Hey, ready. Good shot.
2. Oh, there goes another.
More movers in the vehicle and more people clear to engage all those.
Clear to engage. Again, notice that there is communication. This is who we suspect is in this vehicle. You are cleared to engage. Now, not you are cleared for your one shot only. Do not pass go. Draw 4. Color blue. Skip bow. That's not a thing.
Hey, ready.
Announcing the caliber of the shot.
Come back on those
guys. Moves away.
Here we go.
Shots called. There. Shots called. Explosions. Multiple packages. There's no one-shot rule. That's not a thing. And you may have noticed that after some kind of explosion, there's this stuff called smoke and fire. The idea that we have magic cameras that don't have any kind of smoke obfuscation, people really have been watching too many movies. If they think that, oh, well, thermal imaging shows that we immediately know smoke there's no temperature at all. It's such nonsense. By the way, here was Secretary of War Hegseth making this point in the cabinet meeting very clearly. And what he said really upset the journalists, which for me is just a bonus.
We're proud to do it.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike? You personally?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war.
Again, he's making it clear after the other, the only person he's accountable to for sending those shots is me, the Secretary of War. The rules of engagement are already approved.
This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic.
Now, this really upset the journalists. There's one thing that journalists hate hearing more than absolutely anything, and that is being told that they have really cushy, easy jobs. I'm going to level with you guys. I really don't care for the journalist label. I don't call myself a journalist. The only people who do, in fact, at this point, call me a reporter of any kind are Hammer and Nigel on WIBC. I've told them like 8 times I'm no longer a reporter. They're just kind of, they're not always the quickest to update titles. My title is national correspondent, but in the journalistic sphere, my job's pretty cushy. Now, occasionally we'll go on assignment, but I'm in a really nice, enjoyable studio. Now, someone did attempt to SWAT us today, but that was an inconvenience on the police department where our studio is, much less so than us. It was an inconvenience to my family as well, but at a lesser so, it's a cushy job. I have been on assignment in dangerous places, but as someone who has been to the Middle East and in places where there are interesting things going on, the journalists attached to the battalion, no, he doesn't have it as hard. The people in the battalion are given the job of covering and protecting the journalist in the group. We've had that policy for a very, very long time. But you know who is the real victim? Who was really victimized by Hegseth saying, you journalists in your air-conditioned offices? Why, Barbara Starr. You say, who is Barbara Starr? Well, I had to double check and look this up. Leadership and policy. She has more than 2 decades on the CNN national security beat. So there. How about them apples? Here's what she had to say. Sit in our air-conditioned offices? I'll get out the pearls. Finally, I have to say it. How dare you, sir? J'accuse. Close to every member of the press corps you despise has made multiple reporting trips to combat zones, been under fire, some reporters wounded, some killed. Some today still with PTS. Mr. Hegseth, should we indeed finally accept it's just not possible for you to show any basic respect? I guess, in fact, it is not possible. Barbara Starr, Senior Super Duper Correspondent Supreme, Pulitzer Intelligentsia, PhD. Okay. If you wonder why so many Americans despise the press, that's why. There are a lot of journalists who do sit from their air-conditioned offices, like the Washington Post authors who wrote the false story, and write stories. Yeah, I may go out on assignment every once in a while and be in a dangerous place. Do you know where I am the other 355 days of the year? In our climate-controlled studio. That's nonsense to tell people, you have it just as bad as the soldiers, the sailors, the Marines, and the airmen who are out in those temperatures and conditions constantly. Okay, now we get over to Senator Mark Kelly, who made the decision to leak the details of a classified Inspector General report to the Wall Street Journal. So according to an article from the Wall Street Journal, quote, a Pentagon watchdog has found that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth violated some of the department's regulations all the way back when he shared sensitive information from his cell phone on the Signal messaging service earlier this year. According to Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. However, The Defense Department Inspector General also concluded that as Pentagon chief, Hegseth has the authority to declassify whatever the bleep he wants from the Defense Department. It's his department. He was confirmed. If he wants to come out tomorrow and declassify a bunch of operational details of the Department of War, it's his choice. Anywho, here's the bottom. Kelly said Wednesday after viewing the watchdog report the department sent to Congress, that suggests the defense secretary did not break the law. Now, here's the issue with that. If Secretary of Defense, now Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, was written about in this particular Inspector General report that was classified, a classified Inspector General report, and then Mark Kelly then released that classified report to the Wall Street Journal and to CNN, according to 18 U.S. Code Section 798, leaking classified information, that's a crime. He doesn't have the authority as a senator to release that stuff.
But I mean, it's not like he's still an active serviceman in any way, shape, or form.
Uh-oh. By the way, just for the record here, Sean Parnell, spokesperson for the Pentagon, made this statement today. Thought I'd play it because it's relevant here.
I kind of want to get your take on the Signal Gate.
Yeah.
Obviously, the IG report being leaked out there. Are you happy with the report?
Of course. I mean, so you remember the narrative back in March, I think, when the Signal stuff broke, was that the secretary shared classified information and broke the law, and shared classified war plans and put American troops. I mean, obviously, like what the IG report shows now is that the secretary did not share classified information, and did not break the law. And to me, and not just to me, I mean, the secretary has been totally exonerated. I mean, the narrative that the media pushed back then in the heat of the Signal Gate stuff was fake, and today that narrative has been exposed. And, you'll see out there, a bunch of headlines where mainstream media outlets are using the word sensitive. That's not a classification term.
He's correct. Again, the idea that a bunch of air-conditioned armchair quarterback journalists are suddenly taking emotional descriptive words and are using them now as the official legal standard for things is foolish. It's stupid. And it doesn't resonate with the American people whatsoever. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're really showing their ignorance here. Similar what Hegseth was calling them out over, the fog of war. It's like they think Hegseth is supposed to be standing over the drone operators or the airmen on radio as a circus carny, telling them, "Oh, you get one chance." What if they had left the two people? Say that there was a second strike to take out two more people, left clinging to wreckage.
Yeah, like the end of the Titanic, Rose.
And they had been left to sit there in the middle of the ocean till they what? Drown, get saved by a follow-up boat that was probably going to be
hundreds
blown up
of miles
well?
away. Yeah, no. Again, there's no common answer here. We'll kind of move along here because we are into the bonus tonus section of the show. Thank you very much for those who are hanging around with us this evening. If you do like the show, feel free to like and subscribe over on YouTube and Rumble. That really helps us out. That said, I do want to show you one of the most bizarre clips. Mark Warner of Virginia, Democrat senator. This is one of the most attention-hungry, bitter old men that I've ever seen. And in the Senate, that's a really, really fierce competition. So Mark Warner got in front of the media today, to make a very weird statement. I'll play it for y'all.
Unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think in many ways, the uniform military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump, and I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
So, Senator, let's go a little further.
That's a wild thing to say. I expect the uniform members of the military are going to save us from Trump. That's again, the weird language that the left has consistently used to encourage sedition in the military is wild. And then he immediately tries to go back and cover his tracks and say, and of course that means adherence to the Constitution.
Interestingly, in Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution,
the
president is labeled Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
Hold on a second here. Are you telling me that by swearing an oath to the Constitution, you are swearing to serve the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. military?
It's almost like it says, quote, the president shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states.
I mean, that's some pretty incredible stuff right there. No way. I'm almost.
So yes, they should abide by the Constitution and listen to their commander-in-chief.
There is such nonsense that is pervasive. Yeah, I mean, suggesting that the military needs to save us from Trump, that's coup stuff, boys, girls, and squirrels. That's not good. I don't recommend it. Don't do that stuff. Don't say those stupid things. Don't get out there and make those bad decisions. But that's Senator Mark Warner for you. We'll leave Jackie Rosen behind for just a second. We're going to come back from the commercial break to talk a little bit about some quick news reactions we haven't done in a while. There is some other cultural stuff going on that we want to share with you. And of course, we want to address some of the events from today and give our thanks where thanks is due. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Very unrelated. I did the little Spotify Wrapped end of the year thing today, and the bumper track was my most played song of 2025, All the Way by Bellick, which is interesting. I don't remember listening to it that much. So I now suspect the kids of having just like played it over and over and over again. So excellent stuff there. And I know that's not necessarily related to much, but speaking of home and the family, I do want to bring up one thing really quickly. It's very important. So if you give me a little bit of grace here to dive into this. Today, we here at the Tony Kinnett Cast studio were the target of an attempted swatting. There is an individual who is from northern Indiana who called local police departments here where our studio is and informed them that apparently I was extremely intoxicated, belligerent, and were a threat to those around me, and that I needed, essentially, they were concerned that I was going to commit a lot of violent crimes. So whenever you call a police department on someone else and you suggest they're holding their family hostage, they're in a very unstable state, and they're a threat to those around them, this then dispatches the police to your house looking for trouble. And in a lot of swatting events and incidents around the country, this has turned into a very bad situation where the police and SWAT teams, for example, end up bursting into the room and shots can be fired. It's a very disturbing thing that has caused a lot of real damage. Thankfully, the Greenfield Police Department and the Hancock County Sheriff's Departments here in Indiana, as well as the Indiana State Police and the FBI branch in Indianapolis, we have spoken before, way back, I'd say at least a year and a half ago, about the potential for future swatting events. And there was something in a kind of code with the dispatch so that when they received this targeted call from the individual trying to create a swatting event, there was a note that, hey, there might be a little something weird about this. So again, the officers did show up to our home. We were able to have a good conversation. Obviously, there weren't any problems, but it was a waste of law enforcement resources and time. And it was also in an attempt for officers to break into the area and fire on individuals, because that's the attempt. The point of a swatting incident is attempted murder. And now we know who the guy is. Police are investigating this right now. So he will be caught. He was also stupid enough to give his name anyway to the officer when doing the swatting, which is a very bad choice. So a huge thanks to the Greenfield Police Department and the Hancock County Sheriff's Departments here in Indiana who addressed this today. And of course, to the Indiana State Police and the Indianapolis branch of the FBI. Really appreciate that. Producer Nick?
Yes, huge thanks to both of those service branches. But I do got to say, as I was sitting here with you as it happened, honestly, the worst thing that you were doing was wearing Crocs during this freezing, just snowy weather.
First of all, I wear comfy shoes out here.
If
during
you wonder what's below the desk,
the day at work. No. I mean, I khakis today. A little Jake from State Farmage right there, and I am wearing nicer shoes this evening. But
I'm actually the one not wearing shoes now.
Yes, I unfortunately was wearing Crocs that my kids got me. I wear them around. I know it's winter and there's snow, but I don't have any like slippers for the studio like Grand Moff Tarkin wore around the Death Star. Little Peter Cushing knowledge. So alas, again, huge thank you to those two police departments. If you are someone who participates in political broadcasting, you're an influencer, or you're, again, someone who's either running for office and doing a show. Ted Cruz obviously does The Verdict, along with Ben Ferguson, even though he's a senator. If you are broadcasting from somewhere, you really should have a conversation with your local police department in case anyone attempts to call those threats on you. Here during the redistricting process, there have been some idiots before, obviously I just condemned this a couple of days ago, who have attempted swatting incidents on those who are against redistricting here in the state of Indiana. A stupid and awful attempted murder anytime that it's done. So that aside, I do want to move on to some of the last little bit of news, for the day. So first of all, the Trump administration's work requirements for supplemental nutrition assistance have now gone into effect. So now you need to work a minimum of, is it 80 hours a week or 40 hours a week in order to 80 hours a week in order to receive SNAP benefits. This has upset a lot of people who are going on to media complaining that they have to work, or at least attempt to work, in order to get supplemental assistance. Here you go.
I don't think it's fair that he do that, but...
And you were saying you think it's going to hurt a lot of people?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely it's going to hurt a lot of people. Because you never know, you know what? Especially now that we're in the holidays and everybody wants to have a good dinner and everything. And if you don't give it to them, it's going to be really hard.
It's very sudden and it will affect people negatively.
So... so many things to say, so little time. A work requirement for SNAP. I'm not really offended by that one because I was told the reason that people aren't taking these entry minimum wage positions is because there was not a left money at the end of the day for them to then pay for food and for their families. But if you're working at like McDonald's, again, that's always the example that's brought up, like our president did, then you can still qualify for supplemental nutrition assistance.
And so you get a little bit of money, food at McDonald's.
And then, of course, you also get the money from your labor at McDonald's. So what's the issue here? Why do you not get to work? There better be some rootin' tootin' good reasons for you not to be participating. You say, well, that really hurts their pride. Big freaking whoop. You're not entitled to work in a particular... If no one wanted to tune in to the Tony Kinnett cast, no one wanted to read my stories, I'm not entitled to this job. The Daily Signal does not have to give me money because I think that I'm amazing and wonderful. No, it continues to bewilder me that the number of you that are tuning in at all.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that people are complaining about this at all. I believe there may have been a misphrase earlier, 80 hours per month, which just puts this into perspective of... Are you seriously complaining about 20 hours per week?
No. Yeah, it's 20 hours a week. It's 80 per month. You can't work 80 hours per month. Yeah, 80 a week would be,
what we do some weeks.
Yeah, what we do occasionally, but no, 80 a month. Sorry, got the week and the month mixed there. You can't do 20 hours of work a week? Find a consignment shop and work the counter a bit there. I don't know what to tell you.
Salvation Army, just Goodwill.
Scoop some trash on the side of the road or something.
You at Aldi as a cashier, you get a
go
chair
to your local,
sit down.
Go to your local Protestant non-denominational church and start stacking chairs, man. I don't know what to tell you. Something. Man, it's 80 a week would be two-time rolls. We've upset Daniel with the wrong term, and now he's like given us the lowdown and the breakdown on it. All right, speaking of the lowdown and the breakdown, again, the racial dynamic is creeping back into the Democrat Party. They were slapped for doing the race stuff in the last election. Are they going to learn before midterms? No. Here's a young lady who's complaining, saying that white people should not be wearing bonnets because that's racial appropriation or something.
And at the end of the day, I don't think white people should be wearing bonnets. It never sat right with me. I always hated it. When the Get Ready With Me's would come up on my For You page, and the girls would have the under eye things, and the white girl would take her bonnet off and her hair was completely straight under, that shit used to piss me off.
She's really mad because, again, the idea that there would be a person, the concept of the bonnet originally is supposed to be that because the hair of a lot of black people is naturally curly, if they had done their hair and they didn't want it to get wet and then ruin all of the work on their hair, but then still take a shower and get ready and not mess up the hair, you put on the bonnet. But that's not exclusive to black people. A lot of people put their hair in bonnets.
And to that point, the name wasn't exclusive. It was shower cap. I remember it being prominent in the Golden Girls.
Yeah, the Golden Girls. Again, like the curlers in the bonnet. That's the kind of thing. The old lady in the bonnet with the nightgown is a very comic. Just the desperation to be a victim is just so silly.
It still pisses me off.
Yeah, she's mad.
And I'm already knowing if this video does get a little bit of traction, everybody's going to be under the comments saying, you guys didn't invent them, or bonnets are for all types of hair. It's been proven. I'm a cosmetologist and this, that, and the third. Why?
Yeah, there are a lot of cosmetologists just saying like, you're stupid, which is really funny.
She did predict the
she upset the hairdresser fandom.
This video.
Very unhappy.
When a black woman tells you guys something that makes her uncomfortable, your first instinct is to invalidate her feelings.
No, my first instinct, depending on what it is that you're telling me you're uncomfortable about, if you come up to me and said, Tony, I'm really upset about bonnets, I'm going to laugh. That's my first instinct. And then after, I'm like, no, you're serious. You're upset about bonnets? Oh, okay. I don't usually look at the color of the person when they're like, I'm upset about something and go, well, you are looking a little Chinese, so I don't know if you're qualified to talk about this one. No.
To bring up footwear again, do you get angry when you see people walk around in moccasins?
I thought you were going to say Crocs, and I was going to throw something at you from here. All right, moving on. Again, more people are upset on camera. There is apparently an immigrant of 30 years who was very disappointed with Trump in a frog suit.
I've been here for 38 years, and I cannot articulate how disappointed I am in we the people that we allow this to fall so easily. Having 38 years ago, because I bought into it, yes, I wanted to come here. 38 years later, after being here and realizing how it's more fast,
For those of you who are listening and not watching on the live stream, which you should watch on the live stream, I would like to remind you, this is a woman in an inflatable frog suit saying this. Seriously, dead serious.
More smokes and mirrors.
Yeah, bright pink frog suit. Thank you for the correction, producer Nick.
How it's more fast, it's more smokes and mirrors. I am ready to leave. I can't financially leave right now, but the first opportunity financially that I can get, I am leaving, and I'm leaving on principle because.
I mean, I don't mean to be that guy, but I believe there are people that if you're ready to leave, they'll straight up float your ticket. Self-deportation, kind of popular right now.
I believe that there was a monetary reward for a period where
you self-deport. They'll walk you out to a Sabrina Carpenter song, man. I'm told it's super duper.
Because I feel that if I, as an immigrant, remain in a fascist country.
Oh, fascist country. Says the woman in the frog suit. She's like, I'm not getting enough money from the government. And also, I don't like Trump.
$38 at Walmart.
Incredible. I'm thrilled. Yeah, complaining about not having the financial resources, said the woman who bought an inflatable pink frog suit. Dave Ramsey, that poor man. So let me get this straight. You bought... Well, Dave...
Can't afford a plane ticket back to your home country of Jamaica.
Well, I'll tell you what you do. First of all, beans and rice, not with your hands. Oh, my goodness. And then, of course, the white girls are getting involved. I don't know how I'm going to explain this to those who are listening, but it's a choir over a girl doing slacktivism. It's very, very brave. So she has a black hand over her mouth, pantomiming, "I can't breathe." Okay. And then the caption says, "Why are you protesting?" I don't know of anyone who's actually ever contracted, "Why are you protesting?" like that. Unless he's like a granddad with a washboard that he's playing in like northern Alabama. But anyway, why are you protesting?
This is America.
This is America. All right.
Don't got you slipping though.
I can't breathe again.
Police be tripping.
Then she does the Bambi, you know? She's, "I have antlers." And she has a white hand and a black hand, which symbolizes the deep racism of the minstrel theater in the 30s through the 60s. Or just that maybe she wasn't able to wash it off her hand after she did the George Floyd hand over that. Wouldn't it be a knee print? Because of Chauvin, the "I can't breathe," and wouldn't it be on the neck? Was Chauvin saying like, "Let me feel your teeth"? I don't think he was doing that.
I don't think Childish Gambino would appreciate his song being put over a video of semi-blackface.
Yeah, how much blackface is this? I want to be... Hey, producer Daniel, mathematic this for me here. What percentage of blackface is half your face and the palm of your hand?
No, yeah, this is America. Hey, guns in my area. I got the strap. Now they always say congratulations.
So now she says love over color, and she has BLM very poorly finger painted on her chest. Now it's I don't quite know what to say to this. She looks hinged, not unhinged, not this one. This one's very hinged, clearly.
This is America. Work so hard, don't got you slipping now. Don't got you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping.
Does this look like a weapon to you? She says, holding up a white hand and a black hand. And then, of course, the BLM stuff. That's wonderful. And then she raises her arm that's half black, palm, white knuckles. Maybe she'll tattoo MS-13 on it to stand with Kilmar. You know, a little Maryland man solidarity here. She says, "Be the change. I see you. I hear you. I am with you." White girl slacktivism, man. It's the backbone of the Democrat Party. That and Little Mogadishu.
Do you think that she'll pretend to be autistic to earn some fraud money?
You know what? I'm sure she's going to be right there with the community, standing hand in black hand. Producer Daniel is writing. He's done the math. He's done the math. The surface area of your entire...
He did it.
I love it. All right, what do we got here? The surface area of your entire hand, including fingers, is typically estimated to be about 60 to 70% of the surface area of your face.
More than 50%.
She's more than 50% blackface. I got to round up. I'm sorry. You are voted off of the island. And we are deporting you to actual Mogadishu at this time. So excellent stuff there. Last but not least tonight, I want to share a Joy Reid Jennifer Welch video. Because again, the Islamophobia thing only goes one way. They're very passionate about this. Again, we've gone over the demographics. We had the young white girl. Now we have Captain Botox, Jennifer Welch. And then Joy Reid, who doesn't really have a show anymore, talking about the Trump cult and jihad, apparently. So, Alhu, here you go.
I don't think it's fair.
Oh, sorry. That's the snap whale. I'm sorry. Here we go.
And that's it.
Man, I got the wrong.
Welch looks very different.
MAGA supporters are armed to the teeth. Right. They are rabid in their support of him, and it's a religion. Yeah. And so they will commit jihad for Trump. The fear is that if you don't obey him, his cult will try to kill you.
You know how I know that's not true? Because if it were, there would be bodies everywhere.
That is true. There's a lot of people on the Trump side of the aisle who have disagreed with Trump recently, but I really do appreciate, the little commentary that jumps in there from the MRC crew. Wouldn't committing jihad for Trump be like an Islamophobic remark?
Isn't jihad a good thing? I mean,
jihad is supposed to be like a peaceful struggle, right?
Mamdani, we have a lot of politicians that are very pro-jihad right now. It's almost like she knows the truth of what jihad is and still lies about it.
I think that they're just really, really struggling after Afton Bain getting kicked in the knees. Really, really struggling in the confidence sector of things. I think that's going to be about it for us this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with more of our roundup of the day's news and nonsense. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. And I prefer to watch it on the live stream. I'm just kidding. I don't usually watch it, but you should on YouTube, Rumble, or X. Take care.